In today's video, President Trump makes a bombshell announcement about the COVID vaccine. Also, Mayor Brandon Johnson's hosting a protest in Chicago, and a U.S. District Court judge appointed by Joe Biden has blocked the Trump administration from more deportations. In this video, we'll show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
Just developing here this morning is, from my notes, for the first time, I believe the President of the United States, or candidate Donald Trump, is openly questioning the success of Operation Warp Speed in COVID vaccines. In a social media post not long ago, he put out there that drug companies had been presenting data to the White House defending the COVID vaccine, but that others disagree with it. And this is what he said. This is, I want them to show them now to CDC and the public and clear up this mess one way or the other. I hope Operation Warp Speed was as brilliant as many say it was. If not, we all want to know about it and why? Question mark, question mark, question mark. This is Secretary Kennedy, who back in 2021 was petitioning to have the FDA take COVID vaccines off the market. And now the President of the United States this morning on Labor Day is openly questioning the science behind it.
We have to understand exactly what the issue is. RFK Jr. comes in. He's not actually listening to the experts anymore. He has fired the people of the CDC because he knows they lied about the COVID vaccine. And not only did he fired them because they refused to update their recommendation regarding the COVID vaccine. These people at the CDC still believe people at the age of 6 months old, 6 years old, 12 years old, 18 years old should be getting the COVID vaccine. And RFK Jr. does not believe that whatsoever. And the data proves it, by the way. So what happened? He fires these people. Now they're all on MSDNC trashing RFK Jr. So the president had to come out finally and speak on this. And that's why he said these very words. With CDC being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer and I want it now. I've been shown information from Pfizer and others that is extraordinary, but they never seem to show those results to the public. Why not? They go off to the next witch hunt and let everyone rip themselves apart, including RFK Jr. and the CDC, trying to figure out the success or failure of the drug company's COVID work. They show me great numbers and results, but they don't seem to be showing them to many others. So bottom line is, President Trump is now questioning the vaccine. He's questioning the data. He's questioning the pharmaceutical companies. So is RFK Jr. and the establishment in regards to the medical industry. They're losing their minds over this, which is why they just went to the New York Times to voice their opposition against RFK Jr. Take a look.
9 former CDC directors and acting directors who worked under both Republican and Democratic presidents penned a New York Times op-ed. They say RFK's recent decisions are, quote, unacceptable and should alarm every American. CNN health reporter Jacqueline Howard joins us now. These former leaders of the CDC really had a strong warning here, Jacqueline.
Oh, yeah, Pamela. And, you know, these former leaders in this op-ed condemn nearly every action Kennedy Jr. has taken so far this year. They write about concerns around how he has fired thousands of health workers, how he has downplayed the importance of vaccinations during the measles outbreak. They also say they worry about how he has cited flawed research and how he's made inaccurate statements. They argue that this could lead to impacting public health. It could lead to limited access to health care for vulnerable people. It could lead to fewer resources for low-income families, fewer resources for community health clinics and state and local health departments.
Okay, you really have to exercise your critical thinking skills with this story. As you continue to hear from these experts that signed this op-ed, they keep using the word worry. We worry this is going to happen. We worry that's going to happen. RFK Jr. is doing this and he's doing that. And what they're doing is distracting from what has happened. Understand, over the past 4 years, the science community, particularly surrounding vaccines, has lied to the American people time and time again. Now, this takes us to an educator who is an expert when it comes to vaccination on MSDNC. And this is really a talking point from the left that you will continue to hear. It's that RFK Jr. and President Trump, they're going to make vaccines hard to access.
Here's what worries me the most. I think right now you have a Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who will make vaccines less available, less affordable, and more feared. And so I imagine that these outbreaks that we're seeing are only going to get worse. What scares me the most is we're not going to know about it. That because the CDC has been shredded in many ways by these cuts, that we're not going to have adequate surveillance to let us know how many children are suffering this and where the high risk areas are and where we need to focus our immunization efforts. That's what worries me, that it's going to get worse and that we may not really understand it.
Yeah, this is just getting interesting. Now, before we go any further, happy Labor Day to you and your family. I do want to ask, if you're getting value from this video, could you please like, share, and subscribe? Now, if you want to go a step further and really support us in the work that we do, please shop our merch store. Every week, we're dropping new designs, as you guys can see here on the screen, or you can just buy us a cup of coffee by going to the links in the description below. When you were a child, did you receive 72 vaccines? Did you? Or did you only receive maybe 4, 6? Children are getting more vaccines than people in the military. Think about that for a second. I received an anthrax shot when I went to Afghanistan, and I thought that was outrageous. I can't imagine what's happening to kids today. But they don't want us to question. They think we're that stupid. And the problem is RFK Jr. Isn't going to buy that. And that's why there's a huge conflict.
I don't think it's accurate to say he's just an anti-vaxxer. I mean, he's obviously supported vaccines. I do think it's not inappropriate for the government to have on a rolling basis investigations of what we're doing, because sometimes we find out that what we're doing or what we told the American people turned out not to be true. So rolling investigations of vaccines and the advice we give the American people on this, on food, which is another big part of his agenda. He has a lot of popular support for that, truthfully.
Yeah, see, I'm with Scott Jennings on this. The U.S. government should always be investigating the claims that are being made to the public surrounding public health constantly. Just because 1 year it's healthy doesn't mean 5 years and now it's going to be healthy because of further research. Here's the thing I have for my people who watch my show every day. Ask yourself this question. Why is it that these vaccine companies cannot be sued? Did you guys know that? That if you were to take a vaccine today and die from it, your family can't sue that pharmaceutical company for wrongful death? Why is that?
I'm stunned. This is really, really unheard of. Look, this isn't about Democratic or Republican. This is about fact versus fiction. This is about protecting our health versus endangering our health. To have the health secretary not talking to people who've spent their lives studying vaccines and listening to what they're saying is really problematic. And it's one of the reasons we're already seeing damage. We're seeing, for example, as you said earlier, it's going to be much harder in the next few months for healthy people who want to get a COVID shot to get one.
Okay, did you hear what he just said? He said it's going to be hard over the next few months for healthy individuals to get the COVID vaccine shot. Question here is, what scientific data proves that healthy individuals should actively, aggressively, in some case, be mandated to receive a COVID vaccine? Now, just to make sure that you guys know, I'm not all opinion. Let's hear an expert that went on to Cuomo on Friday night to actually support what I've been saying, is that if you just look at the data, people should not be taking the COVID vaccine unless they have serious health issues or they're over the age of 65 years old. Take a look.
Yeah, I think that you have to look at the data. Again, going back to what my colleague said. And the data is that these vaccines do not prevent infection. And the data shows that where they have benefit on clinical disease is those individuals that are at risk for bad clinical outcome. And those are disproportionately people over the age of 65 or people with significant comorbidities. And so I think the revision of the recommendations that the FDA has come up with, the new approvals that they just came out with a couple of days ago, is these vaccines, the new vaccines are recommended for people over 65 or people who are under 65 that have a significant comorbidity. If for the, I think Pfizer, it was if you're greater than 5 years of age to 65, and for the Moderna, I think it was greater than 6 months. So I think I'm very comfortable. These vaccines really never belong to being routinely utilized in the broader population.
Okay, now let's move to our next story, which is breaking news earlier this morning. a U.S. District Court judge that actually just started working as a judge just 6 months ago, blocked the Trump administration from deporting almost 76 Guatemalan children who were in the custody of the federal government because their parents sent these children during the Biden administration to cross the border illegally.
This morning, hundreds of Guatemalan children remain in the United States after a federal judge blocked a late-night attempt by the Trump administration to send them back to their home country. Multiple airplanes were already loaded up with minors who had arrived to the U.S. unaccompanied. One lawyer telling CNN that many were woken up in the middle of the night, terrified and confused about what was going on. The judge who blocked the effort to remove the children called the government's actions in the wee hours of a holiday weekend, quote, surprising. The government now has until Friday to provide evidence that the children's parents or legal guardians actually requested that they be returned to Guatemala. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is tracking all of this for us. Priscilla, what more are you learning?
Well, Bianna, these are children who lawyers say were fleeing conditions back at home, which is what caused so much alarm when this effort by the U.S. government and the Guatemalan government got underway. Now, it really picked up pace late Saturday into the early morning hours of Sunday. What happened, according to notices that I have seen that were provided to shelters and attorneys, was these shelters were told late Saturday to prepare the kids that fell under this criteria, these Guatemalan kids, for discharge within hours, giving them snacks, their personal belongings, and medications. Meanwhile, the attorneys were similarly told in those hours that their clients would be returned to Guatemala.
All right, so here we go again. This is a story that the media is going to weaponize and make it very emotional. That's why you heard the words wee hours in the morning, dragging them out of their bed, throwing them onto the airplane, right? I mean, they're going to use dramatic words because they want to continue to shift public opinion surrounding mass deportation. Now, just so we're all clear and we're on the same page, a lot of these children that we're talking about from Guatemala, they were sent by their parents to this country illegally. They did not enter the country legally, okay? And as a result of them doing this, just to be clear here, imagine how many children had been trafficked because of this move from their parents. So that's another interesting thing. And then throw on the fact that the Guatemalan government is working with America to receive these children back. So it's not like we are throwing these children to the wolves, but that's how the media is going to frame it. And here's just an example of that from Congressman Ro Khanna out of California. Here's what he said this morning.
Well, they're violating the law. I mean, the reality is you can't just deport people wherever you want. There's due process. And what's sad about it is it's children. Look, the American people wanted secure borders. They did not want mass deportation of children or people here who are paying taxes and working hard. And the administration is just overreaching in a lawless way.
Well, according to the numbers, the American people want people who are in this country unlawfully deported. Doesn't matter if they're children, whether they're hanging out at Home Depot, they want them deported. And if they didn't want that, then the president wouldn't have never been elected. I mean, that's as clear as day. See, the issue that we have on our hands here is that the Biden administration has created something of the nature of chaos surrounding immigration. Okay. When you allow the amount of people that you did, it's all chaotic at this point. There's not going to be a nice, calm way of solving this issue. Just like it was a radical way that he let people in, it's going to be a radical way to get people out. And that's just a reality and the way life works, if you think about it. Now, here's more information on these children. Take a look.
And just so that our viewers understand, HHS's Office of Refugee Resettlement, the ORR, is the entity for which every unaccompanied child that comes across our border illegally is put with. So this deal, in conjunction with the Guatemalan government, for which we have very strong repatriation ties, was worked out. This was being carried out, and this judge steps in. Help me understand, why would she do that?
I hesitate to say, but it seems fairly political at this point, because this seems like it was a carefully reached agreement between our country and the Guatemalan government. And a couple of things that are really important here is that these children are going to be reunited with their parents as long as they're here in the United States being held, in either, in detainment facilities or things of that nature. They're not with their parents. And it's a real irony because we always hear things, people accusing Donald Trump of separating families. Well, here he is trying to put these families back together, and the Democrats and these judges and these groups are trying to prevent that because they want to keep it's quite revealing. They just want to keep the illegal aliens here.
On that point about who issued this order to block the Trump administration from doing this, I don't think you're going to be shocked by this judge. Let me just kind of give you the lay of the land. This judge was appointed by Joe Biden. That's number one. Number two, her name is Sparkle Sukananan, who's from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I probably butchered it, but the fact of the matter is she's not even from America. Okay. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Now, here's Stephen Miller's post. He says it's actually much worse than that. These smuggled migrant children were orphaned in America by the Biden administration. The minors have all self-reported that their parents are back home in Guatemala, but a Democrat judge is refusing to let them reunify with their parents. So I guess this begs the question, will the Trump administration be able to win out on this?
But let me say, here's why I think Donald Trump or the Trump administration will win on this. First of all, this is a repatriation, not a deportation. So this is something that they are going back voluntarily in an instance where it's in their best interest in cooperation with the Guatemalan government. These are not people that are fighting this, and their parents should be the ones that stand in and say what's in their best interest, not some immigration group. And the second part of it, while he'll win, is because the courts, maybe not this court, but the appeals courts and the Supreme Court are giving a lot of deference to the executive branch on these decisions, particularly foreign policy decision where they reached an agreement with the Guatemalan government. A court shouldn't come in and disrupt that agreement. So I think on sort of basic policy, on fairness, humanitarian reasons, everything about this, I think the Trump administration will win, and these children will be reunited with their families, but it may take a few rounds in the court system to get there.
All right, so we're going to move to our next story, and this is about the city of Chicago. The mayor just held a protest this morning titled "No Troops in Chicago," and we got to react to it because I'm telling you, this is peak delusion. Take a look at this.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago.
Clearly, they're going to continue to double down. I don't think they have any other option. I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, in a world where we really do put the American people's safety first, he wouldn't be doing a protest like that. He'd be working with the Trump administration. In fact, they would be holding a joint press conference. But that's not going to happen, unfortunately. And to make matters worse, this is happening in cities that are predominantly African American. And you guys have heard me say this time and time again. I just find it ironic that the party who believes black people are oppressed and need to be saved are the same people who don't mind black lives being killed in the streets, and in some cases at the hands of other black people, in the context of how crime is still a problem in these neighborhoods. And they don't want the federal government to be a part of the solution. In fact, they don't want any solution from the federal government. They believe what they've been doing works, but results say otherwise, which actually led to this interesting question from a host on MSDNC that I don't often see her, but she actually asked a very intelligent question, but unfortunately she didn't get that type of answer. Take a look.
And Basil, just as in the short time we have left, you see Mayor Muriel Bowser there in D.C. saying this isn't all bad. She had caveats that people don't feel like they want to see these agents on the streets, but that crime truthfully has been down since you've seen this deployment. So for Democrats, How do they make this a winning issue for them when clearly Americans feel unsafe?
Well, first of all, the fact that this president is undermining, is talking about reducing crime, but what he's really doing when you look at it is going after and undermining the power of black leaders in largely majority black cities or cities with majority people of color. So that in and of itself tells you that there is some kind of underlying motive here, that this is more than just about bringing crime down. It is an attack on leaders of color who form the basis of the Democratic Party. So, I don't think it undermines the Democratic mission or movement, if you will. The fact is there are legitimate ways to bring crime down without having troops on the ground, period.
Okay.
Yeah, so he says there are legitimate ways to bring crime down without deploying troops. And if that was the case, if that was the reality, then these Democrat leaders would be doing that. Now, their legitimate way of doing it is obviously cooking the numbers. We've gone over it. Every time we look at a city and we look at the reports surrounding the city from left-leaning sources, by the way, there are reports that not only have lawsuits been settled, whistleblowers showing that numbers are being manipulated. So forgive me if I'm not buying the idea of legitimate reasons to bring crime down. At this point, your way doesn't work. The president's going to execute his way. And just maybe it might work. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't work. That's fine. Now, secondly, let's get back to this whole thing about the president undermining black leaders. No, black leaders have been undermining the people they say they care about the most, the black community. I said this yesterday. Black people need to hold black people accountable. And when we refuse to do so, you get people like a Karen Bass. You get people like a Mayor Brandon Johnson. The problem with both of them is they ignore stories like this. This was just reported by ABC News. 53 shot over the weekend in Chicago as governor rejects Trump's threat to send in National Guard. Now, I find that to be interesting. 53 shot, 7 dead is the official numbers just over the past weekend. But Chicago is safe? Is that what we're saying here?
We should be working to make sure that we are in coordination with each other. There's nothing stopping the mayor of the city of Chicago, the governor of the state of Illinois, from picking up the phone and reaching out to the president of the United States and saying, what can we do to be on the same page? We should all be looking to continuously decrease the amount of victims in our city and in our state. And instead, we're getting into this tit-for-tat social media back and forth nonsense, which is only putting the people of Chicago and the people of Illinois in the middle, in the crosshairs of the criminals who are going to use this time to exploit and go crazy, as we're continuing to see this weekend, where we've had multiple mass shootings, multiple victims, and no one wants to talk about them. I hear the governor talking about an invasion, an insurrection. I hear the mayor writing useless orders against the federal government. But what no one is talking about is, if our crime stats are decreasing, why can't we push with Donald Trump's help and decrease them even more? How many victims are we comfortable with? Because that's ultimately the subtext of what the mayor and the governor are saying, is that we are comfortable with the amount of victims we have right now. We don't need to improve on our numbers any further than that.
Guys, I sound like a broken record, but for the life of me, it's almost a derangement on my behalf. I just can't believe a black mayor is okay with black kids being shot in the streets, and he's fine with that. He doesn't want the federal government's help whatsoever to fix that issue, because what he has been doing doesn't work. Because if it did work, we wouldn't be looking at Chicago as a crime-ridden city, and the people of Chicago wouldn't be saying that. That's the interesting thing about all this. But listen, when you hate President Trump that much, and you are part of the Democrat Party, where they have discipline when it comes to messaging. They all are going to say the same thing no matter what. In fact, on a side note, the only person I find not to do that, religiously would be John Fetterman. But regardless of the matter, these people are going to be disconnected. I don't see how politically this helps them. It just continues to divide the country even more. And as was stated from that city council member, the people who get hurt the most are the people of Chicago. But hey, maybe Ro Khanna from California, the Democrat, maybe he knows better, right?
What do you make of the fact that they're having to do preemptive measures, basically, to take protections over potential federal overreach?
It's scary. And we didn't fight a revolution in this country to have militarized streets. And if Donald Trump really wanted to fight crime in cities, he should have run for mayor, not president of the United States. While he's pulling these antics, consumer confidence is down. Manufacturing is down. Farms are closing. The unemployment rate for recent college graduates is spiking to 12%. It's a failed economic record. And all he's doing is trying to militarize our streets. How about he care about our economy? I have a plan called New Economic Patriotism. How about he try to bring peace to Ukraine and peace in Gaza? He's not doing his job, and all his focus is these cities. Well, he ran for the wrong job.
The unfortunate part about someone like Ro Khanna, they are from the cloth of Gavin Newsom. Sometimes you're going to find them on the right side of an issue because they happen to say the right thing. And I give them credit when they do so. But most of the time they flip-flop. Right now, he's back to being a true Democrat. Okay, he's got to disagree with President Trump no matter what. This happens to be an issue where he clearly is misguided, and so is the rest of their party. Okay, I just don't see how you would defend crime. Think about that. They are defending crime. They are defending criminals from committing crime against the people they say they care about. They say they care about the economy. What difference does the economy make if people don't even feel safe to leave their home? I mean, how does that work exactly?
What say you as far as the National Guard having to step in?
Look, President Trump made a commitment to the American people that he was going to make our city and our nation safe. And if the Democrats who run these cities and states are not going to cooperate and they refuse to fix laws like New York's ridiculous bail law that releases people, despite hundreds of arrests, back onto the streets. The top 4 individuals that committed shoplifting crimes in New York, guess what? They had a combined 800 arrests, just those 4 individuals. We had a 94-year-old woman who was pummeled by a maniac on the streets who had been arrested nearly 250 times, but was being released over and over and over again because of these left-wing policies. So President Trump is doing what he needs to do to keep our communities safe. And guess what? If they don't want President Trump inserting and trying to protect the American people, then they should actually reverse the policies that have created these crimes, that have created this really unsafe aspect of quality of life.
Okay, so if you were paying attention to the bottom of that video, it read that Democrat governor deploys National Guard in New Mexico. This is something that actually happened about 5 days ago. Really didn't catch the attention of the news, of course, because it goes counter to their messaging. And it's interesting that some are actually getting the point here. And what is the point? That to solve crime in our country, we need to be sometimes unorthodox in the way that we approach it. Stop approaching it in the same way you've been approaching it because it doesn't work. And if it did work, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Maybe deploying National Guard troops to support local law enforcement happens to be the key here. Now, what's interesting is for all the people who say they care about the economy, you know who's winning in all this? The National Guard troops who get to work full time and feed their families because they're deployed to active duty to help local law enforcement agencies, right? So, you know, there's a lot of positive here, and not to mention the people of these neighborhoods who are going to feel safer. Now, that leads me to your opinion in the comment section below or reaction to these stories in this video. Let's just start with crime. Do you agree with me that, yes, it is unorthodox to use National Guard troops to help local law enforcement crack down on crime, but just maybe it might work? We've seen it work in D.C. Could it work in your city? You let me know what you think about that. Secondly, what's your stance on this whole CDC situation, particularly the COVID vaccine? Do you believe the experts lied about it? Do you believe that the experts should be held accountable for it? And do you believe the fact that Trump is now questioning the effectiveness of the vaccine and questioning the data really is a trouble for these pharmaceutical companies? Let me know in the comment section below. And let's not forget about the order from a judge that was issued this morning blocking the Trump administration from deporting these Guatemalan children. What is your reaction to that? Do you believe the administration is going too far on this, or do you think they're doing the right thing? Let me know your answers and everything in the comment section below. All right, now this takes us to our next video. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so this takes us to our next video, and it's in regards to Governor Westmore, veteran, served in the U.S. Army, and in my opinion, committed stolen valor. I guess he thought it was a great idea to sit down for an interview with ABC News, and they confronted him over it. And let me tell you right now, it went terribly. So if you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.